back at it with another edition of Round One Sports Talk. Let's talk boxing. Like, have you ever heard the expression in boxing, there's levels to this? Well, in reporting, there's levels to reporting boxing as well. And there's also ways of educating the fighting fans for they can see a broader picture of what these people are talking about on pound for pound lists and how they rank the fighters. Please stay with me. You think where I'm going with this? I don't think so. So if you like this episode, please give it a like to the channel. And like always, let's get right into this video. So, like there's levels in boxing, there's levels to reporting. And I feel that we are on a level on my channel that I can start to educate a different view on boxers and how they view the fighters, how they judge them. Now, sometimes in fight fans, they view their fighter and they know what they're seeing. Case in point, the two top fighters in the argument today is none other than Terence Crawford, the American, and the Japanese superstar Naoya Inoue, the monster. Now, they're in a heated debate about who's number one and number two. Even a lot of my subscribers from time to time have hinted if I wanted to argue with the fact that the Japanese fighter is in fact better than Terence Crawford. And that right there is what I want to talk about. You see, when you view the Japanese fighter, you see exactly what I see. You see a skilled fighter, great positioning, great ring IQ, his fundamentals are solid, and he's a well-polished fighter. If you were to ask me my definition of a boxer, what he should look like, it should look like the Japanese superstar. But in some cases, that's not always the point. The problem with Terence Crawford and Naoya Inoue, you're viewing Terence Crawford like his style needs to be like the Japanese fighter. Well, in fact, Terence Crawford has his own unique style, and he has mastered that style. He has brought that style to an elite platform, meaning he is just on the same level as the Japanese fighter. He just doesn't look like him. But what he's doing in the ring, make no mistake, is at an elite level. See, good fighters can figure out their opponent within like 5, 6, 7 rounds. They can figure out their perfect timing, their placement, and they figured out their opponent's speed and power. And by the 8th, 9th round, they start to break their opponent down and finish their opponent. The good fighters can do that. Now, the great fighters can do it within 3 to 4, 5 rounds. Within 3 to 4 rounds, the great fighters will have their opponent figured out. You see? Now, the elite fighters can do it within the round. They can do it in the moment. They can figure out their opponent, figure out their perfect timing and their speed, and they know what their opponent has to offer. Case in point, when Stephen Kubo Fulton went to Japan to make a title defense against the Japanese superstar, from the opening bell, as soon as the first round ended, the Japanese superstar had figured Stephen Kubo Fulton out. He had him figured out. By the second round, he was already starting to initiate his game plan. That's an elite fighter. When Terence Crawford went into the fight with Errol Spence Jr., from the first round, he figured Spence Jr. out. From there on in, the same thing. The elite fighters can do it in the moment. And have you ever heard the expression, real skill takes very little effort? Well, Terence Crawford made that fight look against Errol Spence Jr. effortless. That means he was at the top of his fight. And Terence Crawford made it look so easy that great skill comes with very little effort. He made it look so easy that Errol Spence Jr. was overwhelmed. A lot of you may have had Terence Crawford winning in that fight and said that Terence Crawford is going to whoop Errol Spence Jr., right? But I don't think anyone predicted what we saw in the manner that we saw it. He was hitting him with shots you're not supposed to get hit with at that level in the game. Not being considered the best 147 pounder in the world, and you having 3 titles coming into the fight. You see, it wasn't supposed to be that way. But Terrence Crawford is on another level. And that's what I want you to see. It's not their fighting styles that you need to pay attention to. It's what they're doing at an elite level. Both men are undefeated. Terrence Crawford has successfully unified all 4 belts in 2 separate weight divisions, so both men are well established as fighters. And argumentatively, it really comes down to what you like out of your fighter. I know that Terrence Crawford has had more eyes to his division, being the fact that he's in the glamour division, but this is how most of the people view these fighters. You see, even one of my subscribers had mentioned that Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk belong on the pound-for-pound list. Now, you see, that can't be possible because when you're judging a heavyweight championship of the world, ask yourself one question. How are you judging him? You're basing him on that he is the best heavyweight ever to move like that, but you're only judging him by heavyweights. You're not judging them by every man in boxing. When Terrence Crawford and Naoya Inoue are being judged. Those 2 men are being judged by everyone in boxing. But yet you're trying to put the heavyweight champion of the world on the list by just how he performs in one division. You see, you already got to eliminate the heavyweight champion out of the equation because he's already the heavyweight champion. He has the most prestigious belt in all of boxing. So by default, you're the winner. You see? So when it comes down to skill itself, it really comes down to, all right, these 2 are the best or these 3 are the best. Who do you like out of them? Your answer is neither right or wrong. It's your opinion on who you like as a fighter. And I would always respect that. But when you view these fighters, there's levels to this. And the levels that they're viewing them on is not in how they perform as an eye test. Meaning Terrence Crawford does not look like Naoya Inoue. And Naoya Inoue does not look like Terrence Crawford. But make no mistake, they're both elite fighters. You see? Some of my viewers made comments like Yogi Bear, I got to remember, what's up guys? Yogi Bear made a comment saying that Cam'ron Moten, on his debut, had made an offer. Well, let me back that up. Cam'ron Moten management team that is managed by the one and only Floyd Mayweather had made an offer to Lee Wood, the 126-pound champion of the world, to see if he would entertain the offer of fighting Cam'ron Moten on his debut. Now, right away out of the gate, everybody took this in one light in his perspective. They all said that Lee Wood was scared to fight the kid because he didn't want to get beat by a 17-year-old kid, right? And would Lee Wood take this seriously and then go out there and lose to this kid, and they're going to say, you lost to a 17-year-old kid, right? Even though that Mayweather had offered him 3 times the amount of money than he ever made in any of his fights, Lee Wood took it from a different perspective. And this is what I mean and what I'm talking about of how people view things. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Had Lee taken that fight and went out there and fought against Cam'ron Moten and knocked Cam'ron Moten out in the first round, you know what they would have said? Bro, you beat up a 17-year-old kid. That's child abuse. Right? Have you ever asked yourself and looked at it like that? Like Lee Wood is like, man, they really want me to fight this little kid? And if I go out there and beat up a little kid, what that's going to say about me? Is his bragging rights going to go up for beating up a 17-year-old kid? I don't think so. But what you do in that kind of situation is what Lee Wood currently just did, whether he knew it or not. Check it out. You allow Cam'ron Moten to have his first professional fight. And the way he went out there and finished that guy in the first round, he showed the world that he's polished and he's ready to fight at a professional level. That's all Lee Wood needed. He needed to know that he showed the world that he belongs here, right? And that's all he needs. And then Lee Wood took to social media and said, It's no secret I'm outgrowing the division and I'm thinking about moving up. But if somebody offered me a mega fight and it makes dollars and cents, I might stick around. You see, hinting to the fact that he's entertaining that fight against Cam'ron Moten. Now, Cam'ron Moten stands to be in an interesting situation, an interesting place. Although they are putting his name with a lot of the boxing legends that we have today in present time, he needs to be the one to let the media know that pump your brakes. Don't put the cart before the horse. Allow me to develop as an athlete and as a professional boxer, and allow me to accumulate some belts of my own before you throw me in some of those conversations. You know, like for instance, Tom Brady. Tom Brady had a legendary career. He won 6 championships with the New England Patriots and over 20 years with that organization. And he recently had switched at that point to Tampa Bay. Coming into the Super Bowl, Tom Brady was going against the young Patrick Mahomes that had already won 1 Super Bowl. And leading into their Super Bowl, they were calling Patrick Mahomes the baby GOAT. What a smack in the face to Tom Brady in his 20 years and 6 rings, 10 Super Bowl appearances. And they're already putting this kid with 1 Super Bowl ring in the same conversation with a man such as himself. Tom Brady had to go out there and remind the world why he's the GOAT. And he needed to shut that shit down. Patrick Mahomes should have, right there, when they started calling him the baby GOAT, he fed into all of that. He should have said, please, don't call me that. I need to earn it, you know, because it just put more fuel to the fire when Tom Brady destroyed him in the Super Bowl. So Cam'ron Moten needs to understand that in the sport, they are pay homage to the fighters that came before you. Show respect to champions. And don't let these people lure you into things, you really don't mean. Because in the moment, it's hard being the superstar. You want to make sure you say all the right things and not offend anybody in today's day and age. And I get it. But Cam'ron Moten stands to be in an interesting spot. He could break Vasil Lomachenko of becoming a champion within 4 fights. That would be amazing to see. And I would like to see if Lee Wood actually takes this fight. And now that he's throwing out innuendos on social media that he's willing to entertain it, come on, Floyd, put it together. Another case in point, when you view someone, you might get the wrong impression about someone. It's because it's how you're viewing it, right? Okay, case in point, Floyd Mayweather. A lot of people view Floyd Mayweather and a lot of his flamboyant antics and the way, he talks about some people and the things that he says that comes out of his mouth. But if you haven't paid real close attention to Floyd Mayweather, if you haven't noticed, the only time Floyd Mayweather gets like that, comes out with all the jewelry, 5, 6 chains, he starts talking crap, is whenever he had a fight scheduled or he puts on his promotional cap. Nowadays, whenever he's promoting a fight or a fighter, that's when you see Floyd put on his promotional hat. If you was to pay attention to Floyd outside of the ring, meaning he had no fight schedule and he's not promoting any fighter, I dare you, go take a look at Floyd when he's just being everyday Floyd. No jewelry. He might have like a watch, 1 thin chain on. Have you seen him in the pictures with his daughters, his kids, when he's out in not boxing match functions, just their regular everyday thing? Floyd's not dressed like that. He doesn't talk like that, nothing. In fact, if you was to walk up on Floyd when he doesn't have anything going on, he's one of the most humble men you would meet. He's probably the toughest man in the room and the most humblest at the exact same time. You see, he knows that there is a line and a balance between, in boxing, there's part entertainment and then there's your job. He knew that and he took them both very seriously. He adopted a role, a persona about himself, and it worked. It worked. It made him very successful and it made him a lot of money. But if you didn't know this about Floyd Mayweather, he does not talk, dress. He's a millionaire. He's always going to look fly as shit, right? But He's nothing like that at all. You know, when he's not promoting fights, when he's not talking, when he has a fight schedule, when he's not talking personally about boxing or about one of his fighters. I'm talking Floyd everyday life. Yo, he's suited up. None of that drip everywhere. None of that. He doesn't even. He's like a completely different person. Yeah, he is. So, that's how perception is. You sometimes you can view a certain thing one way, and that'll always be your perception on it. It's up to you to have a more open mindset and to step back and look at things from a different light, from a different perspective. And in boxing, it's really a unique sport. It's where you really have to have your shit together mentally, right? Okay? Because not only some people can't fight unless they get angry. Some people gotta get like their engine started. Some people can fight cold, right? Some people need to cry before they start fighting, okay? So as a professional fighter, you're going in there saying to yourself, I'm gonna go punch this dude's face in. I'm gonna go in there, but you gotta be cool, calm, calculated. You can't overextend. You don't want to make a mistake. Your mind has to be cleared, channeled, focused, and you gotta really have your shit together. So as years of preparation and dedication in the gym, in and out of the gym, you start to develop traits and habits, that in discipline. You start that discipline and training that you apply in the gym starts to work for you in your everyday life. And you start to view things and be more, not be so hot-headed in situations. Although every fighter is not like this, I speak about the ones that are. We know we always have those exceptional ones that use it arrogantly. And they buy into the fact that they believe that that's what a boxer is supposed to look like. The chains, the facade, everything. Like Adrian Broner, I think he bought too much into the facade of wanting to look a certain way in the public's eye, than rather than keeping his skill and then rather than working hard in the gym and staying on the top legacy. He chose another avenue, as all we can all see. And for me, in my eyes, that was truly a wasted talent, because he was a talented man in that ring. For all the things that Adrian Broner went through in his life, and he's continuously, I hope him the best. But Adrian Broner was a good fighter at one point in his career, and he was revered and regarded to the great Floyd Mayweather, but he wasn't able to sustain it. The lifestyle swallowed him up, and that can happen to a lot of our fighters. So that's why I don't put the cart before the horse, and give fighters their credit so early, just like I won't give the credit to the Japanese fighter and put him in the conversations with the likes of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao and some of the greats, because he's still writing on his legacy. But believe me when I tell you, when it's all said and done, it could be pretty remarkable and incredible, and you just might not be able to deny him. It's not just might not be able to. You'll deny him because you want to be ignorant, but the facts will be the facts, and what's on paper is going to go in the Hall of Fame, and no matter what you say, you can't deny him. So we'll see where that ends up. Terrence Crawford still has a few big fights ahead of him that he can put together and potentially even be a 3-division 4-time belt holder. That is a remarkable feat that, man, I don't see anyone breaking. The Japanese superstar would have to go up to another division and get a guy that has another 4 belts, or collectively get all 4 belts in another weight division. And it doesn't always happen the way it's going right now. Meaning, he stands to get it within 6 months, all 4 belts against Tapales. Now, I haven't completely ruled out Tapales in this fight, as you know, okay? Because sometimes there's that certain fighter that can present you with, there's that fighter that can present your fighter with a better challenge than you might have thought going into the fight. Case in point, Tank Davis and Esai Pitbull Cruz. I didn't think that fight was going to go 12 rounds. There's no way you can convince me that going into that fight, I thought Esai Pitbull Cruz was going to go 12 rounds with Tank Davis. But in fact, what I didn't take into consideration, he was actually shorter than Tank Davis. That was probably the first fighter he ever fought that was shorter than him. And as a tall men have told me they've had problems fighting shorter guys for some reason. They got no problem fighting guys they're equal size or even bigger, and they shine on those guys. But when it comes down to little guys, sometimes people that have been fighting bigger guys for the majority of their career, when they get that shorter guy, it gives them problems. And it showed in Tank Davis, you see? So there's always that element in a fighter that can present any fighter with a tough night. So that's why I haven't completely wrote off Tapales in this fight. He can derail the Japanese superstar's trajectory, and he can stop all that, and he can become unified world champion at 122 pounds. In a perfect world, the Japanese superstar wins the fight, and then we want to see what happens from there on out. Because, at the 126, what big names at 126 will entice you to fight on Foster? I don't think that Foster would be a good fight for the Japanese superstar. I actually think he would have a lot of problems with Foster. Foster is just a little too tall, a little too lengthy. He knows how to fight on the outside, and he hits hard. Okay? I don't think that the Japanese superstar is just going to go running in there like he did against Jamie McDonald. It's not going to be, Foster's no Jamie McDonald's. I'm going to tell you that right now. And at a certain point, the fighters are just too bigger. The gods didn't bless the Japanese superstar with a big frame, such as Tank Davis. Those are two fighters that are really are starting to max out. I think Tank Davis is maxed out at 135. He did fight a couple fights at 140, but I don't think he can beat everybody at 140. Have you seen the size of some of these 140 guys? Teofimo Lopez is big for 140. Josh Taylor is tall for 140. Regis Prograis. Man, those are some big guys at 140. And Tank Davis kind of looking like he's a little blimp, a little round around the belly at 140. He's looking around the belly at 135. And I think that's because of his lack of dedication to the sport. I really believe that Tank Davis should have lost more weight and went down to 130 pounds, where I believe it's a more natural weight for him. And I believe he would have by now unified all four belts at 130 pounds. If he would have dedicated himself and get his ass running, all right, instead of partying, he would have no problem making that weight, okay? But yet, he's making 135, right? And although he is in shape, and Tank Davis spars a lot, I think he can easily make 130. And who's at 130? Oh, Hector Luis Garcia. Isn't that the guy that Tank Davis almost went blind at 135? Yeah, so if he moved down to 130, he could take those belts. He wouldn't have to have chasing or waiting for Devin Haney. He's not actually chasing him, because I tell you the truth, besides him saying it on YouTube, I've never officially heard Tank Davis make Devin Haney an offer or want to sign the paperwork to make him his mandatory. You do know at any point Tank Davis, because of the fact that he has that WBA interim title, which made him Devin Haney's mandatory through the WBA's banner. He could have filed that paperwork a long time ago. Now, Calvin Ford can go on YouTube and he can talk on some of those YouTube channels, and he can play dumb if he wants to. He can say, well, no, we have to wait for Devin Haney to finish this up and do this before we can do that, and this, that, X, Y, and Z. No, you have Leonard Enderby and PBC. Okay? Them guys have been in the game for so long, they would have told you right away. You don't got to do any of that. All you got to do is fill out that paperwork and you become his mandatory. Simple. So you can go on social media and you can say whatever you want. Right? What's going on right now with Tank Davis and Eastside Pitbull Cruz? Is he not trying to honor the mandatory so that he can get a shot at the titles? Or, check this out. Why is Shakur Stevenson getting a shot at the WBC? Because he's considered the WBC #1 contender, right? Okay. How could Tank Davis put his hat into that for that he can get a crack at a real 135-pound champion of the world, the WBC? How could he do that? Simple. Vacate that bullshit WBA title tomorrow, today. Vacate that shit right now, right? You are no longer a champion. You can fight for a vacated world title. Simple. You don't need that interim belt. What do you need that interim belt for? Right? Drop the interim belt and put your name in to fight Shakur Stevenson for the WBC. That's it. Because as long as he holds on to the interim the belt, he's technically a champion. And if you're a champion, you can't fight for a vacant world title, right? And then if you fight for the vacant world title, WBC, the WBA is going to strip you for not honoring your mandatory. And that goes down on your boxing record. At the end of your career, it's going to say on above dating time, you were stripped. If you want to avoid that, don't get stripped. Vacate the belt and fight for the WBC. But what do I know? He's got world-class managers, world-class trainers, world-class promoters, and he's with the best of the best in the promotion and with the PBC and Al Heyman, right? Then what's the problem? Hey, you know what? Here, this is an option. You can vacate that belt and fight him for the WBC and be considered a real world champion. Instead of carrying around that interim belt, calling yourself a champion at 135 when you're not. Because the WBA champion is Devin Haney. You see, so, some of these things from the outside looking in, look, I'm not judging Tank Davis on himself as a fighter inside the ring. Because he's one of my favorite fighters. He is a serious fighter, man. That little guy possesses some pop, all right? And he can knock people out. He's a very exciting, explosive fighter, and I truly believe we haven't seen the best version of Tank Davis. Not the best version dedicated as Tank Davis. He really needs to get serious. If we can get that from Tank Davis, man, I would like to see him really make a shot at it, a crack at it. But at 140, I think the guys up there are just a little too big for him. Same thing with the Japanese superstar. How far can he take this? How far do you think he's going to go? Do you really think he's going to move up to 130? Those guys are kind of big, But the one thing I did notice that when he came into the Stephen Kubo Fulton fight, he wasn't the smaller guy by any stretch of the imagination. And Stephen Kubo Fulton is thinking about moving up to the 126-pound weight division, to bang with those guys because he feels that he's outgrowing the division at 122. So that's where I think Stephen Kubo Fulton's next fight's going to be at. It's going to be actually at 126. So, if he can do it, the Japanese superstar, I'm not going to say he shouldn't have any problem doing it. Because there's always a problem. And at this level in the game, every fight for the Japanese superstar is a risky fight. All right? There is no easy fight from here on in. He's going to be fighting all world champions, and the entire world knows exactly who he is. They know what he brings to the table. They know his power. And if you don't know by now, I encourage you to go check him out. You see, because, I get it. Sometimes you can view your fighter and only watch your fighter. And when someone says that there's someone else out there that's better than your fighter, you don't believe it. You don't even entertain the notion. You know why? Because according to you, if he was that good, Why haven't you heard of him by now? The reason is because of he's fighting mainly in Japan, and he's at a way lower weight division, where those weight divisions, unfortunately, like one of my subscribers said, whether I like it or not, they don't get as much eyes like the glamour division and the heavyweight championship of the world. Speaking of which, one of my subscribers mentioned that if Tyson Fury is successful against Usyk, he should be #1 pound for pound best fighter in the world. Now, I want to share something with you right now. I'm not going to, criticize anybody for thinking that or anything, but I want to point something out for you. When you view Tyson Fury and you're judging Tyson Fury, you're judging Tyson Fury based on he is the best heavyweight that ever moved like that. That's how you're judging him. You're not judging Tyson Fury that he's the best fighter throughout all the divisions like Terrence Crawford is being judged. And the Japanese superstar. They're being judged by everyone in boxing. You're trying to get the heavyweight champion on the pound for pound list, not just anywhere on the list, but you want to put him at the #1 spot. For what? For being the best heavyweight? You're only judging him against other heavyweights because there's no heavyweight ever born on planet Earth that can actually move like Terrence Crawford, like the Japanese superstar. Although they look good against their opponents, they're a lot slower than you think. And they're the best heavyweight that had the best jab with the lightest footwork. He's right behind me, right there. And that's the closest you're going to get to a heavyweight looking like a cruiserweight or a junior middleweight. He was out there really moving. But there were some lighter fighters that were clearly better skilled than Muhammad Ali. Absolutely. Okay? He was just the king at the heavyweight, because that's why we eliminate the heavyweight championship of the world. Because not only are you the heavyweight champion of the world, but you got the most prestigious belt in all of boxing. You win by default. There's no other belt in boxing that's better than your belt. You're the king of boxing at the heavyweight championship of the world. So that's why the heavyweight champions cannot be considered on the pound for pound list, because they're already the biggest draw. You see? So, and that's how it works. We want to base on by skill, and I also just wanted to enlighten a different perspective of how they view fighters. The fighter doesn't always have to look like that to be an elite fighter. And that's how they grade fighters. Sometimes it doesn't always translate or look the best. For instance, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had a peekaboo style fight. He didn't have the best jab in the world. He had a great jab, and it was a speed fast one too. But it was basically one-way jab. It was like pow, pow, pow. It was one jab. It wasn't the side jab. It wasn't the looping jab. It wasn't any of that. It was just a straight pow, pow. And that was Mike Tyson's approach, right? But Mike Tyson at one time was one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time at one time, right? And he was considered to be like a pound for pound fighter, right? Because he was so destructive in the way he did it. But does Mike Tyson look like the Japanese superstar? Hell no. Hell no. But some people will argue that Mike Tyson's a way better fighter than the Japanese superstar, right? Where in fact, the Japanese superstar has a better knockout ratio than Mike Tyson has ever had in his entire career. In fact, the Japanese superstar has won more rounds than any fighter right now in his entire career so far, with 25 fights. Right? So it comes really down to like, okay, you have your few elite fighters in the game. Which one do you like? Then that's the correct answer. Support your fighter. It's really up to an opinion at that point, until one man really pulls away from the other. Then you just can't deny the other guy. The Japanese guy, in fact, has done more than any boxer in today's time. There is no one in boxing right now that has a better record in a shorter period of time than the Japanese superstar. Terrence Crawford has a good accomplishment by becoming the first man to unify all four belts in two separate weight divisions. He stands alone there. But the Japanese superstar has truly done some remarkable stuff. It took Terrence Crawford 6 years to get his first crack at a world title. It took the Japanese superstar 6 fights. It took Terrence Crawford, what was it? He was on his 25th fight when he got his first crack at a world title. By his 28, 29, he jumped up and became a 2 division. The Japanese superstar did it in 8 fights. In fact, the Japanese superstar became a 4 division world champion in only 25 fights. He's already had 4 divisions. Terrence Crawford, with all the fights that he has, undefeated to present day with the 2 weight divisions with all 4 belts, Terrence Crawford only has 3 divisions. You see, so look, sometimes things are up for opinions, and facts are facts. Both of these men are elite fighters, and it really comes down to your version of what you feel boxing should look like, because there's different styles to fight games, and you still can be an elite fighter with a whole different style and looking totally different, but no one can beat you for some reason. That means you are truly a master in your style. And that's when you start to come into those conversations with the best of the best, and they start to sort out who's doing it at a better, the Japanese superstar, if you ask me, looks more cleaner. He looks more fluent. He has great placement, good timing, great ring IQ. Oscar Valdez came into that fight with Navarrete, right? And Oscar Valdez was favored on paper. Navarrete came into that fight with, like every other fight. He doesn't have a game plan. He has one of the worst jabs I've ever seen in boxing. His footwork, and if that, well, Navarrete knows what he does well. He understands himself. He knows how he fights. And Valdez, a lot of times people get mixed up skill with ring IQ. I like to bring this up because a lot of people get those 2 things mixed up. They thought because Oscar Valdez was a very skilled fighter and he was a good counterpuncher, that translated over to ring IQ. When in fact it didn't. Because if Oscar Valdez had a better ring IQ, he would have figured out that he needed to make adjustments in that fight against Navarrete. What he was doing was not working. But yet he continued to apply that same game plan when it was not effective against Navarrete. Good fighter with a high ring IQ would have saw that and made the proper adjustments. You get, sometimes fighters are judged and given ring IQ based off their skill. Yeah, they have the skill to throw off a 4-piece combination, sit back, and they look good while they're winning. But I'll tell you where you are when you're in trouble. When you're in a fight, you're in that moment in the fight where that either you're going to start to doubt yourself or you're going to start to recognize some things, embrace the moment, and rise to the occasion. Then I'll tell you what kind of fighter you are. You see? So